Welcome to Master Your Money. Let's just dive right into this explainer, because today we're tearing down the myths, the social pressures, and frankly, the bad habits that are quietly draining our bank accounts. We're going to construct a completely new framework for how you view, save, and actually grow your money. You know, it's time to stop looking at what everyone else is doing and finally start focusing on what actually works for you.
Now, we've all felt a sting of lifestyle inflation at some point, right? But this question hits the nail on the head. It highlights the psychological barrier we absolutely have to conquer before we even look at the math. It's probably one of the most common, yet completely unspoken frustrations in personal finance today. Think about it. You might be earning a way higher salary than you did 5 years ago. Maybe you have a much better title, yet somehow there's this lingering feeling that you're constantly falling behind. Why is it that the more we make, the less we actually feel like we have? Well, to understand the math of wealth, we first have to understand the mind. And a huge part of that comes from what we see every single day. Those pristine beaches and 5-star resorts flooding your feed, they're often complete illusions that just trigger our financial anxiety. We all know that classic social media vacation. It makes it seem like everyone is living in a state of permanent luxury, but the harsh financial reality? Almost nobody can actually afford it without being chained to consumer debt. When we base our own financial benchmarks on the fabricated realities of other people, we are literally setting ourselves up for a perpetual feeling of inadequacy. So here is our roadmap for this explainer to build genuine wealth, step by step. We'll hit 1, the psychology of feeling poor, 2, building your financial foundation, 3, the order of operations, 4, managing your growing wealth, and finally, 5, redefining the end goal. Let's kick things off with section 1, the psychology of feeling poor, beating the illusion. Because before we can optimize a spreadsheet, we really have to optimize our perspective.
Like we touched on, social media wealth is largely an engineered mirage, and it is the absolute root of our problem here. When you believe everyone around you is just effortlessly wealthy, you subconsciously give yourself permission to inflate your own lifestyle just to keep up. So you buy the newer car, you upgrade the apartment, you take the lavish trip, all to match an artificial standard. And this doesn't just drain your wallet, it causes massive decision paralysis. You become so overwhelmed trying to maintain this image that you freeze up when it comes to making actual, fundamentally sound financial decisions. You know, things like actually saving or investing your money.
Moving right along to section 2, building your financial foundation daily habits. This is where we take back control of our day-to-day cash flow.
So the crucial point here is knowing exactly when to use cash versus when to leverage credit. Cash is a behavioral tool just as much as a financial one. Think about it. When you hand over physical bills, you actually feel the friction of the purchase, which naturally forces strict limits. When the cash is gone, it's just gone. This offers ultimate control if you're someone who struggles with overspending. Now, credit cards, they are a completely different game. Yes, they provide points, rewards, purchase protection, all of which can absolutely save you money in the long run, but they totally remove that friction of spending, which introduces a really dangerous risk of high-interest debt if you aren't paying off that balance in full every single month. So the trick is just knowing your own habits and choosing the tool that serves your wealth, not the bank's bottom line.
And speaking of habits, while frugality is a fantastic start, you eventually hit a wall. Frugality, clipping coupons, skipping the daily latte, negotiating your bills, is absolutely crucial for generating that initial pile of savings, but its growth potential is strictly linear. The massive limitation here is that your expenses can only go down to 0, right? You can only cut so much before you're literally just depriving yourself of basic joys. Investing, on the other hand, unlocks exponential growth. This is where your money actually starts making its own money. The catch? Well, it requires capital, which you get from being frugal, and it requires time for compounding to work its absolute magic. To build real wealth, you can't just save your way to the top. You have to transition from a mindset of purely cutting costs to a mindset of growing capital.
Which brings us to section 3, the order of operations. What comes first? Knowing how to invest is great, but knowing exactly when to do it is what prevents financial disaster. Look, before you start chasing those stock market gains, you absolutely must follow a strict order of operations. Step 1, establish the emergency fund. Only then do you move to step 2, the investment account. Now, I know it's incredibly tempting to throw every spare dollar right into the market because, let's face it, that's where the exciting growth happens. But step 1 is non-negotiable. An emergency fund, just cash sitting in a boring, accessible savings account, creates your safety net. If your car breaks down or say you lose your job, this fund ensures you don't have to rack up credit card debt or, even worse, sell your investments at a loss just to survive. Once that defensive shield is fully in place, then you aggressively move to step 2 and fund that investment account to build long-term exponential wealth. Defense first, then offense.
Okay, Section 4, managing your growing wealth, getting help. Now that your wealth is actually growing thanks to those investments, you face a brand new problem. Do you handle it all yourself, or do you bring in a pro? You're really facing a distinct trade-off here, paying for peace of mind versus maximizing your returns. A financial advisor brings professional guidance, emotional discipline during rough market downturns, and comprehensive tax strategies. But that expertise definitely comes at a cost, typically a percentage of your assets every year, which can seriously eat into your compounding growth through fees. Self-investing, however, using things like index funds or robo-advisors, drastically lowers your costs, keeping way more of your money working for you. But, and this is a big but, it requires a true commitment. You have to dedicate the time to educate yourself, and more importantly, you absolutely must have the emotional fortitude to not panic and sell when the market inevitably drops. It's really a choice between delegating for convenience or taking the wheel yourself for maximum efficiency.
And finally, Section 5, redefining the end goal, the true finish line. What are we actually saving all this money for anyway? We need to clearly define what crossing that finish line really looks like. Because the ultimate goal isn't just about quitting work early, it's about buying back your time. Financial independence is actually entirely different from the traditional concept of early retirement. Think about it. Early retirement often implies sitting on a beach and doing basically nothing for the next 40 years, which, let's be honest, sounds amazing for about 2 weeks until you get profoundly bored. Financial independence, though, is so much more powerful. It's the state of having enough wealth that work becomes a choice, not an obligation. You can choose to keep working, you can switch to a lower-paying passion project, or, take 6 months off to just travel the world. It's not about escaping work, it's about escaping mandatory work. It's about achieving complete and total autonomy.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to help you stop comparing yourself to others and start designing the wealth that truly matters to you. What does your personal financial finish line look like? Because if you don't define what your unique finish line looks like, I promise you society will gladly define it for you. And they'll usually do it in the form of a social media feed, custom designed to make you feel like you never, ever have enough. So ask yourself today, are you building wealth to buy status, or are you building wealth to buy freedom? Take a really hard look at your habits, respect that order of operations, and start buying back your time right now.